Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Adrienne Esposito. I'm the Executive Director of Citizens Campaign for the Environment. I'm joined with my co-host today,
Julia Damiano of the New York League of Conservation Voters.
Thank you. Today, we're very excited. We're excited to bring you a fabulous panel of guests who have expertise in the offshore wind industry. You know, offshore wind has been moving across Long Island for several years now. Many of you probably already know that the South Fork Wind Project by Ørsted has been up and running for a year already. Actually, the project is doing extremely well. It's actually performing above expectations as far as energy output is concerned. Also, we just got a one-year summary of the environmental impacts in the Benthic region, and we're delighted to say the Benthic region has completely recovered and has a wide variety of finfish and shellfish that have returned to that area. So just as we all predicted and said, it's working, the environment is thriving, and it's producing enough electricity for 70,000 homes on Long Island. That's good news. Two other wind farms are making their way through the construction process. Sunrise Wind Farm off of the south shore of Suffolk County, and Empire Wind Farm off of the south shore of Nassau County that will be connected to Brooklyn. One of the things that doesn't always get talked about or reported on is what has been the economic impact of those massive construction entities, and also this new, we like to call it a windustry, that has been created in New York State. It's not just Long Island that's been impacted by all of the jobs and the businesses. It's across New York State. So we want to hear today from our expert panels about what kind of economic impacts have happened, what kind of jobs have been created, what kind of educational opportunities are there in advancing and developing the next generation of students and workers that will go into this field as experts. This is a fabulous and an unprecedented opportunity for us here on Long Island and across New York State to develop this industry so that we can have economic progress as we also are establishing sustainable, clean, safe energy supply. That's the kind of advancement we want to see. That's the kind of advancement that we need. Let me turn it over to my co-host, Julia.
Thank you so much, Adrienne, and good morning, everyone. I'm the Offshore Wind Campaign Manager with the New York League of Conservation Voters. For those of you not familiar with NYLCV, we are a statewide organization that is nonpartisan and works to promote environmental and energy solutions for New York communities. We work closely with partners across labor, business, environmental justice communities, and advocacy organizations to move New York closer to a resilient future. Offshore wind has been one of our priorities because it's essential for New York to meet its climate goals. For years, we've worked to educate the public, engage communities, and support workforce development and advocate for policies that allow the industry to grow responsibly and equitably. Alongside Citizens Campaign for the Environment, we are co-founders of WindWorks New York, where we bring together labor groups, environmental organizations, and community advocates to spread fact-based and scientific information to the public. We do that on the airwaves, at community meetings, and by knocking on doors, talking to people face-to-face, and of course, by holding events like this. Today's event is a part of a national week of action organized in partnership with more than a dozen groups across the Eastern Seaboard. Across the East Coast, groups are hosting locally grounded events that highlight real, tangible benefits that offshore wind brings to communities, from workforce training to career pathways to supply chain growth, small business development, and clean energy innovation. We're here today because the economic impact of the offshore wind industry is, as Adrienne mentioned, often overlooked in these discussions. But New York's supply chain is already feeling the benefits, from manufacturing and construction to small businesses like restaurants, gas stations, and local service providers. Offshore wind is creating a clean energy economy for New York. Companies are hiring, expanding, and investing because of it. So with all that said, I'm excited to kick it off to our panelists and start this conversation.
We're going to ask each of our panelists just to introduce themselves, their affiliation, and also maybe just a minute or two about how you are engaged or involved in the wind industry. Rosalie, why don't we start with you?
Thank you, Adrienne. Good morning. I'm Rosalie Drago, Vice President of External Affairs and Strategic Engagement at Haugland Group. We are a civil infrastructure and energy construction firm, union-powered, and we have worked on every wind project except one, I think, across the Eastern Seaboard. And in addition to wind, we do gas, solar, hydro, whatever form of energy infrastructure there is. We take part in it, and wind is absolutely essential to that. So I'm thankful to be here today to talk about the economic impact, both on the workforce and the business side for wind.
Phil?
Yeah, hi, I'm Phil Regiel. I'm the president of the Institute for Workforce Advancement. We are a nonprofit organization with a mission to reach out to underserved, underfunded communities, schools, and public at large to bring them into career awareness for advanced manufacturing and related industries. So our involvement on the energy side is through the manufacturing supply chain. In fact, we run 2 websites dedicated to wind and energy. One is called OSW Supply Chain, which is, as the name implies, a resource for businesses and others looking to get into the industry and into the supply chain. And the other is OSW Long Island, which is a careers website for localized at the moment, but going national soon, on careers for people within the industry. And so very happy to be here today with this great panel and looking forward to the conversation.
Great. Thank you, Phil. Ryan?
Hey, Ryan Stanton, Long Island Federation of Labor. The Long Island Federation of Labor is the union movement on Long Island. I think most listeners will know what unions are. Unions have members. The affiliates of the Long Island Federation of Labor are those unions, and ultimately we're really, I would say, one of the sort of foundational organizations and institutions that engaged in the offshore wind industry in partnership with the Citizens Campaign for the Environment, as well as a number of other folks around the room today that have been invested in and will remain invested in offshore wind. So just excited to be here, and I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about who we are, but thanks for those listening.
My name is Josh Kowalski. I'm the Vice President of Sales and Business Development at the Port of Coeymans. Those not familiar with the Port of Coeymans, we're a small port on the Hudson River, about 13 nautical miles south of Albany, about 100 nautical miles north of New York Harbor. We are involved in a lot of large infrastructure projects because we have a large laydown area, and we've been engaged in the wind industry since 2017 with my first OWEA meeting. And it's just a great opportunity for New York State to really capitalize on the renewable energy market. So I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. So let's start out with business impacts. And the first question for our panelists, and I think, Rosalie, we're going to start with you on this one. How has involvement in the offshore wind industry really impacted your company's growth, the revenue, any new contracts, job numbers, anything that you could provide to our viewers about what is the impact of these at least these 3 offshore wind farms here in New York State?
Thanks, Adrienne. So a couple things. First of all, I mentioned before that we do all kinds of energy infrastructure. So wind has expanded our portfolio, and it's done a couple of things. So I don't know if we could put up that slide, right? That is 400 local workers, union workers, that are employed from Sunrise Wind only.
Wow.
We worked on South Fork Wind, 400 of your neighbors and my neighbors working on that project. Our land portions complete or near complete. That's one segment of Sunrise Wind. 150 workers in the office, accounting, marketing, contracts, legal. And then we'll talk about a little bit more later about 840 local businesses that are benefiting as subcontractors and vendors and local spend. So without a doubt, it's expanded our ability to hire workers. Something we don't talk about a lot is the retention piece in the construction industry, right? It's cyclical, and the more projects we have, the more we can retain that workforce. We wanted those 400 workers to go from this project to another project, right? And keep everyone employed and keep adding workers. So it's expanded our portfolio of work. It's expanded our ability to hire and retain workers and the 800 businesses that we've spent money with have grown as a result.
We like that.
Yes, we do.
Josh?
So at the Port of Coeymans, we are the home of 3 components for the Sunrise Wind project, the suspended internal platforms, the external platforms, and the anode cages. And not only in the what I call the Capital District, the Albany market, but also across the state. A lot of that steel came from a fabricator in Buffalo. So there was 230 direct jobs. But when we talk to the restaurants, to the delis in our small little community, they are all benefiting from those jobs coming in. Because the workers, they need to eat lunch. They need to stop and pick up groceries on the way home. So it's a huge benefit to the area. And it's not just in the area where the projects are. It's the mobilization project where we're putting these large components onto barges and moving them to site. So it's really across the state that we're seeing the economic benefits of these projects.
Great. Okay. So let's talk about what kind of jobs and union involvement. I remember a couple of months ago, I was at an event and I ran into some dock workers. And they were telling me that they had worked on the South Fork Wind Farm, and now they had switched over, now that was done, to the Empire Wind Farm. And so these were men and women that were working in very cold water at the time, building docks. So I get a lot of time from members of the public, what kind of jobs are being created? What are people doing physically or mentally to help construct offshore wind? And so, Ryan, maybe you could help us out with that.
Yeah, sure. So just to sort of tie some of the comments together that have already been made and to answer Adrian's question directly, the dock builders that Adrian mentioned are a skilled trade within the building and construction trades that, a lot of folks, when they grow up and they hear about the building and construction trades, they think, plumber, electrician, carpenter. I mean, those are things everybody, I think, knows about growing up. And what has been really delightful and wonderful about opportunities like this is we get to talk about dock builders, iron workers. I don't think people have as much of an appreciation for the skill that goes into being somebody that's a painter or a taper. There's going to be a ton of work. Anything that has a coating, and these things are built at sea, and they have to be coated in order to protect the public's investment. Those are some of the jobs that you might not think of, that might not naturally occur to you. You don't grow up with your parents talking about it. But those are the people that are, spending money at the restaurants near the Port of Coeymans, that are at the gas station in East Hampton when they're working on South Fork Wind. And so it's the members of the local union movement that represent not only these different trades, but everybody in the entire supply chain that are driving our economy. The U.S. economy is 70% consumer driven. And when we build in the utility sector, and we're talking about offshore wind today, but I think the point I'm looking to make is in the utility sector broadly, we're creating union jobs. Right? We're investing money to make sure that we have the infrastructure to support our region, to support, when we go and flip the light switch, that the lights are going to turn on. I think that's something listeners at home probably take for granted. They just assume when I hit that switch, that's going to happen. And, historically, that wasn't necessarily true, right? And we've brought our region, brought civilization forward to the point where we just get to take that for granted. And so by investing in our community and in our utility infrastructure, it's great to create these jobs, but I would like to highlight that it's also great that when we flip the light switch, that the lights still go on. And so the dock builders, the iron workers, the teamsters who are driving the trucks to and from the site, I think it's really important that folks at home really fully appreciate those are the people that are making that happen. Mm-hmm. The electrician, I'm sure, comes to mind, but it's a whole team, it's a collective effort. And, and a big thank you to our elected officials who, in both parties, have remained committed to making that sound economic investment, creating these opportunities, and, just making sure that we have not just a better future, but a better economy, which I know is important to folks.
Rosa,
I just wanted to make a point. or an additional point there. And one of the interesting things that's happened with the wind industry in New York State, which you don't see very often, is it's opened up sort of an interconnectedness between upstate and downstate that very often doesn't
Very
exist.
true.
And so you're seeing union workers from District Council 9, Steel, working at the Port of Coeymans, right? Going back and forth. You're seeing we're taking advantage of the skill sets that we have in certain areas. Port of Coeymans does something that we can't do on Long Island. I mean, we just don't have the real estate. We don't have the port side operations. They're doing a really important function, but yet we're still interconnecting from a job standpoint. So it really has opened up a lot of people's eyes, I think, to show that actually, we've had a historical divide between upstate and downstate. In the case of these projects, that's gone. And there's a whole pathway now that it exists that did not really exist before.
That's an excellent point. Thank you, Phil. Rosalie?
And building on what all three of you said, so first of all, I think our tugs and barges were taking the concrete mattresses, right, from Long Island, manufactured on Long Island, up to the port, right, and back. So, yes, you were talking about the unions. We have 11 unions working on Sunrise, right? And so there's an onshore portion of it. I think this is part of what you were asking. So the same infrastructure construction we do for any other kind of energy, right? Digging a trench, putting those boxes in, running cable through. So it's 11 unions working together, collectively investing their talent, combining their talent locally. There's onshore, offshore. We currently have, I think it's 88 or almost 100 people offshore right now completing the job. So, and it really depends on what you're interested in, right? Some people really want to do 2 weeks offshore, think that's exciting, being on a ship or on a platform for 2 weeks away at sea. Some people don't want to do that. And they want to stay on shore and be able to go home every night. So there is something for everyone. And together with the employer and the unions, we've focused on hiring local and recruiting local and giving opportunity local. So these are not foreign workers. These are our neighbors working on the jobs. And the last piece of information I got before I came here this morning was the overseas companies are asking for our local labor now to come work on their project.
Who could have saw that coming?
Nice.
Right? We all saw that coming, but no one believed us. But that's what's happening. They're seeing the value of our workers and asking for them to come work on other projects in other states and other areas. So it's a career, if you want a local career, if you want to be at sea, if you want to go travel, it's got all those pieces to it.
That's a total reversal.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
You mean they weren't welcoming us with open arms, excited to work together?
Might
that
not have
warm and
happened in the
fuzzy.
beginning.
No, I think we do have a lot of good developer partners. I'm teasing, but
Yeah.
it was new, right? It's a new market. It's a new
right.
industry, and not new to the world, but it was new here. And we were fortunate to benefit from the lessons learned from the early 90s when this all started. And so to bring it back to Adrian, framed it, and today's discussion is about, the economics. We're seeing economies of scale. We're benefiting from lessons that have been gleaned in the industry for the last 30 years. And so I think that's a point worth making.
Yeah.
And I, want to make a point too. I remember when the wind industry first came to New York and wanted to build, there was a lot of myths and rumors out there. And one of them was that they won't hire locally. They'll be importing people from overseas. So here we are once again on a myth buster opportunity here. That didn't happen. What did happen is instead the industries hired your neighbors and your relatives and your community members. So they hired locally, we're training locally, and educating people locally. So I think that is a significant point. And that leads us to the next question. But I also want to mention, I know we have a lot of people logging on right now, viewing us live. If you do have questions that you wanted to ask the panel, please put them in the chat. Our expert team is monitoring that chat, and we're going to see how many questions we can answer after the discussion is over. So please do that. The next question is about education. And we have all these wonderful workers now, but how and what are we doing to prepare this next generation for the skill set that they will need to enter into the wind industry market? We need to have them educated. We need to have them trained. So, Phil, I think we're going to start with you on this one.
Just so happens, coincidentally, I got some facts together on this topic.
That way.
I can't look at Adrian. I have to look this way. So there's a lot of things going on, actually. And so my organization is an educational nonprofit, and we do training programs currently we're under a New York Power Authority grant doing a 5-day energy program that introduces people to all the various components of the energy markets, renewable energy markets. And that's a small piece of what's actually going on. So there are some really significant programs that have happened and are continuing to happen. One a few years back was the Offshore Wind Training Institute. Was a grant through the SUNY system in New York State, the school system, and included Suffolk Community College, Farmingdale University, Stony Brook University, all the way up to Buffalo, Hudson Valley, and many more. And that was a really good start. It was an $8 million award that actually helped jumpstart a lot of training programs. We have here on Long Island, in our backyard, just a few minutes from here, we have the National Offshore Wind Training Center, which certifies workers to work offshore. So if you want to get off a boat and onto a platform, you can't just do that. You got to learn how to do it safely and get home safely.
And what town is that training center in,
That's
Phil?
in Brentwood,
Yes.
right around the corner, on the
don't know where we
campus of, that's right. For those of you who are not local, that's on the campus of Suffolk Community College. We have SUNY Maritime, which is is part of the state school system that is producing a huge amount of workforce. They're doing certification training for all aspects of the maritime operations. And in fact, interesting little fact I just found out the other day, the Eco Liberty, which is a 262-foot vessel operating out of Brooklyn for the Empire Wind 1 project, their entire crew comes from SUNY Maritime.
Oh, that is really...
They're all local. That's kind of amazing, right?
That is kind of amazing.
Kingsborough College has a Bridges to Offshore Wind program that's very successful. We do our thing, and of course, the New York State Energy Group, NYSERDA, has a very good website on all the training programs available throughout the state. So there's an awful lot going on.
Great. Josh, do you want to talk about what's happening in your neck of the woods?
So yes, I sit on the Center for Economic Growth for the Capital District Board of Directors, and we've been very on the forefront of getting to the colleges and universities to put the programs together for this. Hudson Valley Community College has done a lot with welding and fabrication programs, and I know RPI, from a different perspective, is working with General Electric on some grid innovations and optimization programs. So the capital region is prime for projects like this. So it's exciting.
It is exciting. And Ryan, how about those apprenticeship programs?
So Rosalie, I think, touched on this earlier. Construction is a transient industry. And so if there's not a project, there's not work. And in the construction industry, if you don't go to work, you don't get paid. So if you work 40 hours a week and you have a paycheck coming on Friday, God bless you, I'm happy for you. And, I want that for everybody. And the reality is, if we don't have projects in the pipeline, construction workers don't get paid. And so investments like projects such as South Fork Wind and Sunrise Wind and Empire One and a whole host of others across the Northeast and the Mid-Atlantic have created a pipeline large enough to really justify an industry in the United States of America. And so, we have seen investment sustain and support increased recruitment into apprenticeship programs. And that's not specific to offshore wind. The union movement and the building and construction trades both collectively are committed to our members. We say cradle to grave. We support folks in terms of advocating for parental and maternal leave. And I think that's a thing that people don't always necessarily connect to the union movement. And, we advocate for pensions and retirement with dignity. But everything in between there is education and training and making sure that we have the most skilled workforce. So much so that foreign developers have realized there's a tremendous value in that. And so investments like this continue to sustain and support those apprenticeship programs. They were around before the offshore wind industry, and hopefully they'll continue to grow together. And sort of deviating from that a little bit, a point that I think is tied to this, maybe if just tangentially, Americans' politics have been hijacked, and we don't always have the time in the day to take a step back and realize that our economics and our politics are unequivocally connected. And the decision to invest in the offshore wind industry that was made in certain states to create that market and that pipeline of projects that supports those apprenticeship programs doesn't just benefit those states. We have substations that are American manufactured substations supporting projects like South Fork Wind. That happened because we in America decided to invest in ourselves. The service operations vessel, and I'm not sure if it's the one supporting Empire One or Sunrise.
It's Empire One.
So the Eco Liberty was manufactured in the United States of America. So our politics has been hijacked, and folks don't get to realize or appreciate, the money's getting spent in red states and blue states. It's supporting Republicans and Democrats, conservatives and liberals. And so when we talk about an economic impact, and we talk about investing public dollars, and we talk about shoring up American energy independence, that's what that means. That means we get to go to work, apprenticeships get to grow, and Americans, get to participate in our economy and spend money supporting the delis and the restaurants and the regions that they live in. So I just feel it's important to connect the politics and the economics because it's real life.
And you mentioned that the workers that actually you could go back one, the workers that are the other one, with the dots on the
Right there.
the yellow one. The one
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
There we
those
go.
workers, they're in multiple congressional, legislative, local districts. They're in Republican, Democrat. They're just across Long Island. I want to just, on the training piece, start sort of like employer down. If you work in wind and you work for an employer, you're getting trained. We send people to Korea, to France, to the actual, place where things are made to be trained in splicing and different technology. So if you're working in the industry, you're getting trained continuously. Apprenticeship, labor unions, training for workforce. Every one of our colleges and community colleges, four-year colleges locally, BOCES has something that'll prepare you for wind. We haven't talked about technology yet. We use drones, CAD, BIM, 3D modeling, data analysis, highly technical and technology-focused AI in this industry. That's being trained in all the colleges. It's just about putting it together for wind. The thing we didn't talk about that I think is super important is high school. So we have all these programs, whether you're going to college first or you're going to a trade first. And by the way, those are not mutually exclusive. A lot of our senior staff that are in the office were tradespeople at some point. But we've really, part of the law and policy under CLCPA for wind in New York mandated investment in local community. And a key part of that is the high schools. So making sure that we're providing career awareness and hands-on training and industry and labor, giving those high schools and the teachers the tools to help students prepare for the industry is critical. So yes, every school has a CAD program, but is it CAD and 3D modeling or drones for construction, for infrastructure, for energy? So this is something that a lot of us have been investing in. Teacher training is critical. The teachers don't often have the time and ability to learn the new skills, and it's incumbent upon industry to give that information and training, and also helping the parents become aware. One of the most powerful things over the summer, a bunch of us here at the table, including educational institutions, supported students. So we did an 18-mile duck bank where the cable will get pulled from offshore to the converter station that you referenced that we built locally. And every school district along that route, we did summer programs with to help train the teachers and the students about the careers, manufacturing, trades, STEM careers. And at the graduation, and it was all disadvantaged communities across where the duck bank went through. And the most amazing thing about graduation was students sat there and said, my parents said that they didn't think this renewable energy thing was real or that there were real jobs here, but I saw it. I did the work. I welded. I saw a construction site. I flew a drone over, right? I actually saw it with my own eyes and realized that there's a career for me in this. And those hearts and minds are changed at the dining room table, right? Not in social media, not in a political argument, but the students went home, and we have stats, and a lot of those students are either at Stony Brook doing construction or going into construction or studying or looking to get into the pre-apprenticeship at the union. So really the high school level where we can allow their curiosity to connect with this industry, I think is critical.
That's great.
Make one more point.
Of course.
So the other aspect to what Rosalie was just discussing is the notion of transferable skills, meaning that there's a lot of overlap in industries. So regionally, for example, many of the skill sets required for offshore wind projects, coincidentally or not coincidentally, happens to be identical to what the U.S. Navy submarine industrial base needs right now from our region as well, right? In manufacturing, in operations and maintenance, technicians, you name it. There are industries where these skills are they're transferable. They can go here to here to here, and depending on where the needs are, we can adjust these. We should be able to adjust these workflows. But that's an awareness thing. People have to understand that if you are put through a track to get certified as a welder, or you're going in engineering, whatever, or anything in between, there are multiple paths for you. It's not just, okay, you got to go into manufacturing for aerospace, right? You can do offshore wind, you can do renewable energies, you can do hydrogen, you can do hydro, it goes on and on. So that notion of transferable skills is critically important to growing a base of workers that are flexible and deployable.
Good.
And
So-
if I could piggyback
Yes.
something on something Ryan said about the construction industry being transient, they'll go where the opportunities are. And what we've proven at the Port of Coeymans through the Tappan Zee replacement, the Mario Cuomo Bridge, we have also had several power plants. The C. Warren 7 steam generator was built on site. The Bridgeport, Connecticut steam generator was built on our site. We've proved that the talent is there. And one of the goals of Center for Economic Growth has been, how do we keep that talent in the state? It's if you don't have those opportunities, that talent's going to go elsewhere.
Right.
If I may, Adrian, is that right?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, sorry. I didn't want to derail maybe the direction of the discussion, but just on the point that was just made, I'm the union guy on the panel.
Yes.
And so to me, of course it's important that work is union work, right? And I try not to ever come to a discussion taking for granted what that means. When I say union, to me it means a good paying job. It means the ability to provide for your family. It means a roof over your head. It means ideally you're going to send your kids to college and not have to sweat that, or you're going to put them down the path that you went down and earn these skills that have allowed you to provide for your family, right? Whatever's right for you. And I recognize that not everybody listening, that's not what it means. And I don't know how to change that other than to say, if we continue to make investments in our communities, we can continue to recruit from our communities. We can continue to grow local unions so that someday it gets to mean the same thing to all of us, right? We have a universal definition of a union job is important, and it's important to my community because it means, the tax burden's alleviated. You have more people moving into the community that are owning homes and paying school taxes. And so instead of local officials having to raise your taxes year over year, you just have more people that are able to pay that, alleviate the burden, maybe industry invest in your community. And so I really try to make an effort to tie, when we invest in our utility infrastructure, when we invest in the building and construction trades, those are good jobs. that are then investing in our communities, investing in our public education system. And so it's not, oh, well, I'm not in construction, so it's not important to me. It's not, well, I don't have a union job, so it's not important to me. It's a pathway and a vehicle, and in my view, the best vehicle for us to all collectively support one another.
Look, it's been said before, and I'm going to say it again. You know what lifts up a community? Good paying jobs. You know what makes people happy? Good paying jobs. You know what lowers crime? Good paying jobs. So that's what we're talking about today, good paying jobs, and also other jobs that are created. But before we go on to the next question, we have a question from one of our viewers watching us today for Rosalie. Rosalie, if you're graduating high school this year, or I guess it would be next year, technically in June, what is your next step to get into this industry, would you recommend?
So first of all, if there's a way, and there are ways that we can make sure that you get some exposure to what the careers are over your summer, I highly recommend internship in the industry, which, you know, we can send you some information on afterwards, so you can figure out which parts you're most interested in. And then it's really up to what is your personal path. If you want to or need to work first, you can go into a trade for certain. And so and listen, to back you up on that, Ryan, like, we're an employer that pays union wages, and they're higher wages and higher benefits, and they should be, because we want more robust communities. But so you can certainly go into an apprenticeship for a trade. You can also we have roles, and I'm just talking about infrastructure construction right now, a safety role, for example, which is not a union position, but where you get to deal with environmental safety and regulations and going on every construction site. It's a great way to see all the different trades in action. And so then if you're on the college first path, you can go into construction management, engineering, software development. Some of the stats you'll see in a little bit are from our data analyst that analyzes all our data. So it's really get some career awareness. If you can, especially if you're a rising senior in high school, spend that summer before senior year getting some exposure to what's out there, and then you can determine which path. And by the way, none of them are mutually exclusive. So if you start down a trade path and decide you want to be in college, I mean, I did the work first, and I turned out all right, and I'm working in wind apparently. And you can go the 4-year college route and work too. So I think, one, get some exposure. You can contact any of us here, and we'll connect you with a way to at least get your school to come visit our sites and see what the jobs are. But there's community college, 4-year college, trade path, no matter which way you want to go.
If I could add to that.
Sure.
Just some specific avenues that might give you the career awareness that Rosalie's talking about is NYSERDA has a portal for vendors and businesses to figure out how to operate. And so Rosalie mentioned an internship, and you're like, well, I don't know where I should intern. Take a look at those that are doing business in the industry.
Can you just mention what NYSERDA is for our viewers?
Yeah, absolutely. So NYSERDA is the Research Development Authority. It's an agency that offers independent research to support the decisions that we're making in New York State, to make sure that we can continue to power our economy and to power our region. And so NYSERDA, NYSERDA, has their own website, and there's if you're listening and you're coming out of high school, I'm confident you can navigate a website. And so you'll see that there are again, there's a portal for businesses who are interested in plugging into this industry. Just search those businesses and see who might already be operating, and then pursue an internship there. Opportunities Long Island is a pre-apprenticeship program that recruits from communities across the region, that provides a direct entry pathway into the building and construction trades. Farmingdale State College, a wonderful institution of higher education and learning here on Long Island, really targeted and has carved out a wonderful niche in terms of bridging the gap between high school and if maybe engineering is your passion, and you can do that there. You can do that at Stony Brook University. Atmospheric sciences, Stony Brook University is one of the best institutions in the world. So these are areas of expertise that we have institutions here on the island that are providing the education necessary that, if you're interested in this space and place, then, they're good places to look. And, Phil, I think, has an entire website dedicated to sort of mapping this out and a pathway folks can go through.
OSWLongIsland.org. Thank you.
So
Can you say it again? Pull your mic close, please.
OSWLongIsland.org.
Okay. All right. We need
And
to move
I
on.
would also just say definitely reach out you could probably reach out through Phil's website, and then he would know which employers would be willing to take a high school student on, because that is not for every employer. So
Right.
I think that's probably your best.
And I think but
first
the
step.
question was specifically after graduation.
Yeah.
That's great. Okay. So I hope all of that answered your question. All right, we're going to move on. The next question. Local economic impacts. And this really does get lost, I think, as part of the story when you're building a new industry, when you're creating all these jobs. But there's a ripple effect, but a ripple effect that has real meaning and substance throughout the community. It was alluded to earlier. If you hire 400 workers, well, a lot of them stop for coffee. A lot of them stop for their egg sandwich. They leave work. They stop at the local shops on their way home. What does that do to the local economy? So we're going to ask our panelists today if they have any data or stats on such things as the local deli, the local gas station, the local bakery, local shops, where these offshore wind farms have been developed. Rosalie, maybe we should start with you for this one.
Yeah, so the picture we put up there, again, you can't really see, but it's really about the dots, is 840 businesses. Now, we only have a portion of Sunrise Wind, right? We're not the full Sunrise Wind project that Ørsted has, but we're just one piece of it. And us alone subcontracted work on 840 New York businesses, right? 98% of them within a 20-mile radius of the project. So I'm a complete data nerd, because it's nice that we say these things, but I want to prove it. And to your point earlier, we went and asked our data analyst, who's a graduate of Brentwood High School, and he ran the credit card analysis. And so ran analysis on every credit card we have, and 580 of that 840 plus are local retailers, gas stations, food establishments. So there's two sort of things. Yes, the individual workers go out to the deli to get, by the way, it's the apprentice that goes out and gets the food, gets the coffee and the sandwich and whatever. But we could very easily have brought in a fuel truck, which is 10 times cheaper. But if you're working with local companies, they're committed to local. So we actually took our credit cards and went to every gas station in the area on purpose. Right? So we have a list of every gas station. Those dots aren't just random dots. That's the actual businesses and their actual addresses. So that is that. And then we have business meetings. We have developer meetings. So all of our local catering, every piece of that, right? Staples, whatever those local businesses are, that's in the 580. And again, we're only one piece of one project. So it's an incredible local investment.
It's incredible. And let's remember what happens. So when we have more business at the deli, more business at the diner, they hire people.
Yeah.
Right? So they're putting more people to work. Then it's very hard for us to track that kind of data. We can know how much money we've spent there, but we don't know how many more people they've employed and they've hired because of our spending. And that would be a much larger and a much more complicated study, but nevertheless, those are real jobs also. And sometimes people don't want a full-time job, but they want a part-time job because they want to be home when the kids come home or whatever the case may be. So these are also adding to our local economy.
Adrian, one more thought, and not to be so those are all the happy stats, right? When we finish restoration on the road where the duck bank is and we're done with the converter station, right? Those 580 businesses are going to have a serious drop in business because we have bought food every day and gas every other day and supplies every other day. So just tying back to where we started here, the projects, the wind projects, the energy infrastructure projects are what keep everyone employed. And when we have these, what appear like momentary, but are really critical minutes for the businesses in our community where we're like, I'm not sure we want to do this. That's somebody's life and livelihood and family that's impacted by those decisions to put these projects on hold.
Well, fortunately, we have and antiquated energy infrastructure here in the region. So there's
Yeah.
plenty more investment we can make.
As long as we invest in it, yes, which is
Yeah, we need to.
yeah.
Yeah, just on the back of what Rosalie said, the 230 direct jobs for Sunrise Wind for Riggs Distler working at Coeymans are one thing. But when you go by and you see the garage that has 3 Riggs Distler trucks and 2 trucks from a maritime company that's or they're buying parts at the local filter shop, that's business that they would not normally get. And if that business goes away, then everybody suffers.
Right.
If I could just sort of zooming out, big picture, Rosalie has some really wonderful individual data points across the region, but just a very obvious one, there's community benefits agreements often tied to investments and development. And so Ørsted, in this case, they're the developer of Sunrise Wind, and we're the developer and currently operate South Fork Wind. They have community benefits agreements that they have entered into with the town of Brookhaven and the town of East Hampton. And so, again, it's revenue coming into the town that's not coming out of your pocket, right? It's coming out of the developer's pocket, and it makes it possible for us to continue to have investments in our infrastructure occur, for us to continue to have services in our town that we rely on, and we don't have to pay that portion of it. So I think
Well,
that's important.
speaking of which, guess what local governments, both villages, towns, and counties, rely on for their budget? Sales tax revenue. So the more people put to work and the more places that they shop when they're working, the more sales tax revenue is going into the local, state, local county, and town budgets, which means it keeps our municipal taxes down. So that is actually something they rely on. They project each year how much they believe sales tax will bring in, but when there's more than expected, then they don't need to raise taxes the next year to cover the ever-increasing cost of healthcare and other, governmental functions. So that has a benefit as well. One of the questions we're getting from one of the viewers is we've talked a lot about construction trades, but we didn't talk about jobs like engineering jobs. Can anybody speak about that? What about the impacts of that for the engineers out there that apparently are watching?
Do it. We can.
I will say that in 2017, New York State, NYSERDA did a port study, and they studied any opportunity that they could have to put these large components on the water. What they found was there was a few very viable sites, but there was a lot of sites that were kind of on the cusp, and they could use some upgrades to be more shovel ready for these projects. So an engineer would have to design those ports. An engineer would have to design these ways to transport these large components. So there's a lot of engineering opportunity.
Same, and the engineer does anything that's being constructed in construction is designed by an engineer. And again, just adding that the technology piece is critical because there's a lot of tech behind everything that's being done today. So software engineering and design engineering on the technology side is another job. And maritime, right? I think we've touched on that.
Yes. Okay, great. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Phil.
I would be remiss if I did not bring up the other major project and its economic benefit, which is Empire Wind project that's being built out in Brooklyn at SBMT, which is the South Brooklyn Marine Terminal. That project, which is developed by Equinor, is well underway, though it is not anywhere near what the Ørsted projects are in terms of completion, but it is moving forward. And I just wanted to make a few points about that in terms of economic benefit for the New York City region, which we don't really talk about much out here, but it is important because it ties back to employment on Long Island. So Empire Wind is going to deliver the first power by the fourth quarter of 2026, hopefully, and that will be fully functional utility scale power by 2027. They have invested over $1.6 billion in New York's economy during just the planning and early construction phases. Okay, it's not even completion. Over the life of the project, Empire Wind is creating an estimated 4,000 jobs, 2,832 of them at the Brooklyn Marine Terminal. 42% of those employees are minority, and 1,947 of them are union. They have the first U.S. flagged vessel, which we've talked about a couple of times today, the Echo Liberty. I want to point out, actually, that ship alone has its own supply chain, which is benefiting the local economy.
Where's that supply chain?
Yeah, and tell people, how big is this ship? What is it? Nobody knows what it is.
262-foot ship, the most modern operational vessel in the United States right now. It houses the crews that go to work to build the farms. So it goes out for 28 days at a time, and then you have 28 days off. So you work 50% of the year, right? They're transporting the workers to work on the turbines, and then at the end of the day, the workers come back on the ship and they just hang out in this absolutely luxurious. It was described to me recently as a floating boutique hotel. And the idea is...
Okay, wait, but I want to say, though,
easy.
if you're working out 28 days out at sea, 35 miles offshore in January, I don't care how luxurious it is. That's a pretty tough job.
It is not for the faint of heart, right? And the reason it's so luxurious is precisely because of that point. When they get off that rig at the end of the day and they're cold and they're
frozen.
wet, they want an environment that is absolutely luxurious where they can calm down and they can get a good night's rest and recover, right? So that includes gymnasiums, conference rooms, lounges, full commercial kitchen. By the way, once a week they do lobster and steak dinners.
Okay, Phil is recruiting.
You're not gonna
He
get
is
that.
shamelessly recruiting right now.
So, but my point being, so there was a point to this whole thing.
Yes, Phil.
Which was, thank you.
It wasn't just use the word luxurious.
The lobster dinners on the ship.
The point of this was when the ship comes into port, there is another company, J.S. Connor, and a division called Vessel Agency, that supplies that ship with absolutely everything they need. So if they need an electrician, if they need a food service provider, if they need more cleaning done, there's a company that is sourcing totally local just to support that vessel. So that's sort of a microcosm example of how a supply chain impacts a community. And last but not least on that point, just one company, Skanska, which is the project, which is developing the project at the Marine Terminal and managing it, $861 million project. They have already engaged 41 companies locally to build that project out. We're talking about fencing companies, we're talking about concrete manufacturers, we're talking about steel fabricators, we're talking about drone companies. I mean, it just runs the gamut. And a number of those companies are Long Island companies, right? So again, there's a connectedness there between what's going on in different parts of the state. So that's my Empire Wind 1 pitch and play for the day. Thank you.
Okay. But again, I want to say these jobs are difficult jobs. They take a lot of dedication, a lot of skills, and frankly, a lot of guts sometimes. So I really do want to commend a lot of the men and women that have chosen to take jobs where they're away from home for 28 days out in some very challenging environments. Notwithstanding the description we just heard from Phil about their food
Local
and their
lobster.
luxury. Yes. Okay, so last question that we'll get in is maybe just where do you see all this going? So now we've been embarked on a journey here, creating a new windustry here in New York State. We, despite some headwinds, every pun intended, politically and also economically and just logistically, it's still going. So as we said, we have one wind farm completed, 2 more on the way. And where do you see the wind industry going? People are employed, businesses are growing, technology is advancing also. The wind industry, even just from 10 years ago, has dramatically advanced and changed and grown in a really sophisticated way. And for our viewers also, look, the wind industry is new to America, but it's not a new industry. The wind industry has swept over the globe, and most of the countries are already using on and offshore wind. America uses onshore wind, and you might be surprised to know that the state with the most onshore wind is actually Texas. So we have adapted and we have diversified our energy portfolio to some degree here in America, but to really diversify it, we have to do what other countries have done and really deploy offshore wind so that we can and will reduce our dependency on fossil fuels, but also to diversify our energy supply, which means it would be a healthier way economically and also environmentally to generate energy. So where do you see all this going in the next 10 years, would you say? Who wants to take that one first?
Ladies
I'm happy to.
Everyone's pointing at me. I don't know what to do about that. All right.
I mean, if you need a minute.
No, I'm good.
All right, go.
Neither one of us ever really need it.
No, we never
No,
do.
that's true. That's true.
So, look, you started with it earlier, Ryan. We have aging infrastructure. We have an incredible increased demand for power, right? And a rise in severe weather situations. So there's no question that we need strategic, balanced, and diverse power portfolio, right? And so wind has to be in. That's it, right? It has to be part of that portfolio. And to everyone's point here earlier, that infrastructure has to be built at the same time we're building all of these power supply sources, right? So we have to strengthen the current grid all at the same time, which means jobs and transferable skills, but we can't take our foot off the gas. Wrong way to go on this one. we can't lose momentum on new innovative ways to produce power and strengthening the grid at the same time. So,
Thank you. Ryan?
Where are we going? I'm not in the habit of making predictions. I don't know where we're going. I'll just lay out what I've experienced and what I know. South Fork Wind and Sunrise Wind are happening. They're being built. They're being constructed. And they're being done so in a bipartisan fashion. In order to move a project that is in the billions of dollars, that is employing entire communities, you have to have buy-in from local officials, state officials, and federal officials. And we have seen in this region, comparing directly Nassau County and Suffolk County, when we have local leadership that is willing to stand up and demonstrate leadership, like County Executive Ed Romaine, who's a Republican, like Town Supervisor Dan Panico, who's a Republican, Governor Hochul, who's a Democrat, and Congressman Lilota and Andrew Garbarino, all of whom are impacted, all of whom have constituents that are benefiting from this and are impacted by whether or not we continue to make investments in this industry. All of them have collectively communicated with their communities, worked with them, learned what their needs are. We know what our power needs are, and we know our power needs are growing. And so we have one project that is completed with the first American manufactured substation to support it. And we have another one that's well on its way. And so when we work together across party lines and we allow constituents' concerns to be heard and addressed, we can make progress. We do make progress. And we've not seen that tact in other communities in the neighboring county. And we've watched politics hijack legitimate energy concerns and demands that we have. Like we hear it over and over again. AI is the wave of the future. Energy demands are growing. Data centers, data centers, data centers. You know, we hear these things in the media, we see it on social media, and we hear it in our everyday lives. And so we know energy demand is growing. And in the labor movement, we believe in an all-of-the-above energy approach. And I'm not saying that the whole world has to subscribe to that, but what I'm saying is we have long been advocates of offshore wind because we know that it is reliable, can be produced at scale, supports good union jobs, and doesn't have to be partisan. And we have evidence of that. And so where is it going? I don't know. And I won't make a prediction, but I will make a plea to not just my friends and colleagues around the table who have committed their careers and their resources and their organizations to making all that possible, But to anyone listening, local official or just resident, like, this is a big deal for us in this region, and it doesn't have to stop. And so if we collectively come together and say we want more of this, we know it can happen because we've done it.
I think the state has done a great job, starting with NYSERDA, the governor's office, of really putting renewable energy at the forefront. And it does. It offers those jobs and it offers business growth. And I think it's important that we realize that. And what I saw from 2017 till probably, till right now, is the plan of the supply chain, bringing in the supply chain, bringing in the small manufacturer, the mom and pop shop, and saying, this is how you can benefit from offshore wind. This is how you can be a part of it. And I think that is great. And like you said, getting the local government to back it and to support it, that's a very important piece of this puzzle. The state's behind us. The federal government goes back and forth, but the local governments is where it starts. And if they can see the benefit of those jobs coming into the community that benefit the small businesses, I think that's the important aspect of this.
Bill, last word there for you?
Last words. We also have to acknowledge on the offshore wind side that there are other projects out there that are moving forward, which is important, and that would be the Dominion Wind Project in Virginia, and of course the Vineyard Wind Project off of Martha's Vineyard. Yep. Those are moving forward. They are in various stages of construction, and that's important to know. So there are multiple projects in multiple states. The other thing I wanted to mention is just something that Ryan touched on, which is an energy approach, which is an all of the above approach. And if we do that, and you look at New York State and the power generation capabilities that we have through renewables and existing, gas lines and whatnot, we don't have an infrastructure that can support it in a way where it is most impactful. So you can generate all the electricity you want if you've got a grid that can't transport that power to the places that are needed, or you can't meet peak power demands when they're needed, other than kicking on a dirty, oil burner, what they call peaker plants, to meet that need. You're not doing a service to your citizens of your state. So projects like Propel New York are critically important, which is a major upgrade and update to our infrastructure downstate to be able to accept this new generation of power and get that power distributed to the places that really need it. And that takes not only support at the government level, but it takes community support too. And people have to start looking beyond tomorrow and looking like way out and saying, what are your kids and your grandkids' life going to be like if we fail in building out infrastructure and we fail in renewable energy projects? What does that mean for their quality of life 30, 40, 50 years down the road? So, I don't have a crystal ball either, but I think the renewable energy train in general, and offshore wind being a part of that, the train has left the station. And it will continue, and Texas, of all places, is the leader in not only onshore solar, but battery technology storage now as well. Hey, if Texas can do it, the rest of the country can do it.
He means that nicely.
I do.
He does.
Help us keep the lights on.
Let me say this. Offshore wind has become a necessity, not a luxury item. We are demanding more energy as a society. We will be demanding more energy, as Ryan pointed out, with AI. Some people don't like AI. Whatever. I got to tell you, no one's going to stop it. It's here. It's coming like a bullet train. Other nations and other countries are already using it, and America has to keep up. It is extremely energy intensive, extremely water intensive as well. We're going to have to find ways that are sustainable to meet the energy demand. Even without AI, each individual home is demanding more energy each year because of all the gadgets we plug in. So we have an increase in energy demand. We have on the horizon, a significant, maybe doubling of energy demand here in New York State. We're going to need to diversify our energy portfolio. And I want to say also, all of the myths and misinformation that were out there a couple of years ago have been proven wrong. Okay, wind power is reliable. Wind power actually is very affordable. It is a constant cost. It is not subject in cost to all the geopolitical circumstances that happen. The cost doesn't go up and down. It does employ local people and good jobs. It does provide community benefits to our local municipalities and governments. And we could go on and on. So I'm sorry, but I think it's worth saying here, everything that we promised the public would happen, has happened, is happening, and will continue to happen, because we are all working together to make sure this is done the right way, the way that benefits us, is a sustainable pathway forward, and delivers on those promises, which is very important to us also. Let me just see if Julia has some last words she'd like to chime in here and say.
No, thank you for that, Adrian. But I think you did a pretty phenomenal job hitting all of those main points. But I do want to say thank you so much for everybody who tuned in for this conversation. Offshore wind is driving a clean energy economy that's really transforming our state. And so it's exciting to see how things progress as the industry continues to unfold.
It really is. Ryan is compelled to say one more thing. Ryan?
One final point. I would be remiss if I didn't mention Adrian's leadership in particular, Kathy Burke-Gonzalez, Peter Van Scoyoc, Michael Hansen, Judith Hope, Kate Rogers. I mean, they're just a handful. Roger Coeymans. They're a handful of local leaders that more than 10 years ago built a base of community support to make South Fork Wind possible, and that competed against every form of energy generation. It was not just renewable. To deliver reliability for the South Fork of Long Island. And without that effort, in large part led by Adrian, we wouldn't be sitting here today to highlight all of the wonderful economic impact that these projects have had.
You're here. So on that happy note, we want to thank everybody for joining us, and we will see you soon on the down the road to the path of a successful energy diversification and transition.